Alright, what up, y'all? Got a big ol' update for you here again. I'm still working through this enormous stack that's been sitting on my shelf over that way. And this is the second to last installment. This is going to be straight up death metal all the way through. Nothing else. No deviation. Nothing. So I didn't want to play some death metal in the background. I haven't really been in the death metal mood anyway. It's mostly been like thrash and power metal, but for whatever reason I felt like listening to this morning. Dead Souls and Moon Flares by Drowning Light in the background. This is a couple EPs and some material from Splits. Kronos is ready. He came in for the good stuff. Really good comp, really enjoyable. I like pretty much all the Drowning Light stuff. Obviously some of it's better than others, but whatever. No beer this morning. I guess it's not morning, it's like 1 in the afternoon. I don't start work till 4 today, so I'll be farting around the house for a bit. Alright, good boy, Crow. Let's get on into it. First one, Straight Heater. One of the greatest death metal albums of all time. Inarguably in my book. This is Screams of Anguish by Brutality, man. Brutality is a stellar band. This has been a pretty long-lived band. They broke up for a while, but they're around again. But the guys in this band are pretty committed to it. You know, 3 of the 5 guys who played on this first record, which is from 1993, are still part of this band. And this is a 2004 repress out on Disembodied Records. I picked this guy off of Amazon. So I never noticed how amazing the Brutality logo is. Look at that. You got dragons, you got me as a fan. That's about all there is to it. Love to get a t-shirt of this album cover. I don't particularly understand what's going on, but this is like some really forward-thinking, a little bits of Brutality, old school death metal. There's some techiness, there's some melodicness, and dude, this is straight up riff-o-rama. Like, you are just never bored for a quarter of a second listening to this album. The whole time, you're like, man, what's coming next? How are they going to make this riff even cooler after this, like, 4th cycle here? How are you going to make it even better later on in the song? The whole time, they bring stuff back that's catchy. They get rid of stuff that's not as catchy, but still good riffage. It's just a really, really well-composed, old-school death metal album, man. All about it. This guy's got guys from Monstrosity in it. It's great. Brutality rules. Next, More Heat. I don't know if I've been this impressed with a record in a long time. Especially something that I just chose to check out because I've heard the early records were really good old school stuff. And I have a buddy who's really into this band. But this is Mystic Places of Dawn by Septic Flesh. First off, whoever is making the decisions to reissue this stuff with these album covers needs to be stopped at once. Somebody needs to file a cease and desist notice to that dude ASAP, because this band has some of the worst aesthetic choices there are. But this album itself is absolutely amazing. I was so floored when I heard this for the first time. I popped it on my way home from Half Price Books, like 6 towns over. I drove all the way there, about 40 minutes, and I put this on and I was like jaw on the ground, full on big old crack between my teeth. My jaw hit the ground so hard. I was just blown away at the atmospheric quality this band can produce. This early stuff, this is from the early 90s, and obviously Septic Flesh is a Greek band. They are just absolutely amazing. It's densely atmospheric, it's melodically interesting. The keyboards are such a great layer over the top of everything. They're not used sparingly by any means. They use the keyboards quite a bit throughout the entirety of their career, but specifically in this early couple records, it's really like good, I don't want to call it cavernous death metal, but it's atmospherically cavernous without, you know, sounding like incantation, just like every 5 million new death metal bands seem to do and call themselves a cavernous death metal band. It's just so much of a journey, and I absolutely can't get enough of it. I'm going to have to pick up a bunch of the early Septic Flesh stuff as time goes along. Got to love it. Next, I've been wanting to get a hold of this for a while, and I kind of thought it was hard to get a hold of, but I found it in the Hell's Headbangers. This is the Created to Kill demo by Cannibal Corpse. This is obviously a bootleg out on Maggoty Remnants Productions, which is a great name for a death metal label. Old school logo, looks really, really good. This is the Created to Kill demo, which if for some reason you're not familiar, is Chris Barnes doing a couple of the tracks that wound up going on Vile, Mummified and Barbed Wire, Gallery of the Obscene, Puncture Wound Massacre, Devoured by Vermin are like the tracks that kept their name, and then the other three, I don't know Vile as well as I do some of the other Cannibals, so I couldn't particularly pick out which song is, oh, that wound up being this, oh, that one wound up being that, you know. But I do recognize the songs relatively, but I'm not as huge on the Fisher era as I am as the Chris Barnes era. So it's a great demo. It was exciting to hear what could have been. I almost want to say it's an upgrade to have Fisher have been brought in for Vile, because it wasn't bad. It definitely wasn't bad yet. And this also has the first demo. What is the name of the friggin' demo? It's the Skull Full of Maggots demo. That's what I thought it was, but I didn't want to just say it. Yeah, it's great. If you guys are needing a copy of this, go check it out on Hell's Headbangers. Then throw it on the ground right by your cat. Next, Amorphous, the Carillion Innsmouth. I picked this up on HHR as well. I have been wanting a copy of this for a good long while. I have Tales from a Thousand Lakes, Elegy, and Beneath the Red Cloud, or whatever that one record is called. But I just wanted to get a hold of this first record. It's really, really good. It's super thick sounding. This record is incredibly dense musically, both musically and the tones wise. It's just crushingly heavy. I don't want to say crushing because I don't think that it's as like abrasively crushing as much as it is cacophonously heavy, if you catch my drift. This also comes with the Privilege of Evil EP, which came out after this, the year after. I want to say Carillion Innsmouth was 92 and Privilege of Evil was 93, if I remember right. It's great. It's a great full-length record. The EP is absolutely great to have tacked on to the end. A great album cover, which I never got a really good look at up until I actually purchased the CD. So I'm really hyped to have this in my collection. I've been meaning to get a hold of it. Next, I've just been bringing. This is straight heat all the way through. There's a couple things that are like, oh yeah, this is good, but the majority of this is just top tier, and this is no slouch itself. Swamped in Gore by Broken Hope. Dude, you want to talk about catchy death metal? I'm just walking around my house just humming stuff from this, or just Swamp in Gore. I just love it. Absolutely love it. I've been doing that for the past, I don't know, 3 weeks since I actually got the CD in the mail. Also, this is a hideous cover, obviously, but I love it. I wanted the original cover on here. The reissue cover's cool and all, but like, dude, you gotta have the original. I would even rock a t-shirt of this. Out of Flogger Records. But dude, this record is so much fun. It's so replayable. It's memorable. It's heavy. These old boys are from like 35 minutes south of me. Jeremy Wagner used to work at the Home Depot kind of close to my house. It's great. It's great. Brian Griffin from Family Guy plays the guitar. It's great. There's nothing more I could say. It's old school death metal. Pretty brutal, but not all the way brutal death metal. It's catchy. It's fun. You're never going to find a record this amazing. Coming out of Chicago suburbs, technically, I think. Anyway, next, Rhapsodies in Red by Disastrous Murmur. I've been wanting to get a hold of this, but both Steve over at S&T Young and Brian from Brian Arkham were like, yeah, dude, you put that in your cart, ASAP. Because I think I sent both of them, like, I got to choose from these couple records, help me pick one. And this was in there, and it had to come here. Had to be in my collection. This is an Austrian death metal classic from, I believe, 1993, reissued by Osmos. First off, check out that super sick artwork. I can't really tell what these dudes are. Are they like some kind of creepy aliens? They kind of look like if you put a lizard and Schmeagol from Lord of the Rings together. Kronos! He's always causing trouble. He's not supposed to be in my closet, and he knows it. And he keeps trying to break into it. And he just uses his big old body to knock the door open. Anyway, it's thrashy, old school death metal. It's fun, it's raunchy, it's really aggressive, and it's pretty replayable, man. I really enjoyed the crap out of this. This kind of stuff has really been giving me the feels lately. This thrashy, old school death metal. Love it. You guys know how I feel about some of those bands. The Mercilesses, and Solstice, and Demolition Hammer, Coroner. I guess isn't really a death metal band. It's mostly just techie thrash with little tinges of death metal in there, more like a sadist style. These next like 4, we're gonna be hanging out in Sweden for a bit, so kind of all over on the Swedish scale as well. This is Inflames with their album Lunar Strain. I don't remember where I picked this up at, but I got it cheap. I think I picked this up at my local store, Siren Records, for like $5, and I'm like, I've been wanting to get more into Inflames. I have a handful of their records. I think I have Jester Rays, Oracle, and what's the one right before Clayman? Whatever. I think whatever it is. But this is a band I like every single time I put it on. But there's like seldom a time where I'm like, oh, I want to listen to Inflames. That like never ever happens, and I don't know why. But the past year or two, I've kind of been really getting into this more atmospheric-ish melodic death metal. When you have like something more like At the Gates, where it's kind of hardcore influenced, a little more angry, or the Black Dahlia Murder, I think would be considered more that style. I think I really like more of this kind of melodic death metal, where it's not so aggressive, where it's a lot more it's meant for listening rather than fist pumping, head banging, singing along with. Eternal Tears of Sorrow would be also a great example of what I like in melodic death metal. Absolutely great stuff. Norther, Kelma, or whatever that band is, great stuff. But this is fun. I'm definitely gonna listen to it some more. I need to listen to Inflames more often. Next, I got a hot take on this one, but Clandestine by Entombed. Great record. Absolutely great record. I enjoy how raw it is. I like how punky it is. I like how much of a beer drinker death metal album it is. It is a very much so old school, fun, good time death metal record. And for that reason, the real atmosphere I get out of this, I think I might like this album more than I like Left Hand Path. Which I know. Before you start throwing things at me, let me explain. Those vocals, dude, are so much fun. The dude who's doing the vocals, which I believe is the drummer, it captures such a genuine, real performance out of these guys. And it's heavy, it's really intense. I love LG Petrov's vocals, obviously, but the reason I like this so much is I love the vocals, which is hilarious. Because I listened to this in my van, and my wife was just like, this is substantially worse than what you're usually listening to in here. And she hates pretty much everything I put on in there, unless it's like power metal, proto metal, some traditional metal, maybe doom a little bit. She doesn't like the extreme stuff really at all. I think like the heaviest she'll like tolerate is Slayer, and that's just like dealing with. So when I put on something like this, where it's raw, it's angry, it sounds like he's slobbering from his mouth. You can see the snooze peeking out from his gum. He's absolutely wasted in that studio. It's great. It's tons of fun. Next, Swedish Brilliance, Across the Horizon by Anatomia. This is a underappreciated release. So this is the 2 EPs this band did, Across the Horizon and the one right before it, which is The Light of Day, which only 2 tracks. From The Light of Day, because it's only 2 tracks in general. It's like an 8-minute EP. But Across the Horizon is like 26 minutes. So in totality, you're clocking in a little more than a half an hour, and I think that's perfect. It's a good, one way to work listen, check out that band photo. Who is doing this? Who's allowing this to happen in their death metal band? Dude, if when I was playing in Apotheosis, if one of my boys would have showed up rocking any of that, I would have been like, go home and change. We're not taking these photos until you go home and put that Morbid Angel t-shirt back on. Because, like, what is that? But anyway, this is like, it's not your straight up HM2 Swedish death metal, like, you know, the Entombed or some of the other stuff I'm going to show in this update. It's atmospheric in an extent, and it's a pretty melodic record. It's got a little bit of keyboards, but it's not a ton, and it's not overwhelming. It sounds like these boys were having some play dates up in Finland with some of those bands, if that means anything to you, because I tend to like the Finnish death metal more than I like any other old school death metal. It sounds more like a Finnish band than it does Swedish, and I really do appreciate that about them. This came out, I think they might have been a little late to the party. I think this was like 93, 95. I don't particularly remember. But it's a really, really good compilation of the two EPs. If you guys haven't heard this, go check it out. Autumnal's great. Next, Raped in Their Own Blood by Vomitory. I have been wanting to get a hold of this for a little bit now. I've known about this record, and I know it's a classic, even though it's from 1996, so they are definitely a little bit late to the party. And I saw Marty Worm talking about how much of an influence this was on The Glorious Dead, considering The Glorious Dead's name was taken from, I think, one of the songs on here. Let me look. I don't know. It might have been taken from one of the lyrics. I don't know. Anyway, he was talking really highly of this, and then I went on Born Dead Collection, and Melanie had this for sale for like $6 or $7-ish bucks, something like that. And I was like, you know what? Bring it on. Let's take it home. And I'm glad I did. I enjoy this record. It's a great Swedish death metal album. It's not so HM2-y. This kind of reminds me quite a bit of Flesh Crawl, but a lot more raunchy, you know. It's a nasty album. It's really gross sounding. And it doesn't sound gross as in, like, you know, like the brutal death metal snuff film disgusting levels. This feels gross, like you uncovered like a dead animal in the woods, kind of gross. I don't know. This album smells bad. That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. Vomitory is great. Check this album out if you guys haven't. We got those are the last of Sweden for a couple of CDs here. So we got 4 albums by one of my favorite death metal bands, being Nile. I absolutely adore this band. I'm trying to collect them all, like Ash Ketchum. I got a handful left. I think I got 3 Nile records still to get, but I got their debut, Amongst the Catacombs of Nefrin Ka, right here. It's nice, raw, kind of old school brutal death metal, broken CD case. I picked this old boy up from Born Dead Collection again. Had to get it. And then the second LP, or second record, the Black Seeds of Vengeance record. It's absolutely top tier as well, from the year 2000, 1998. I have the In the Beginning compilation as well, so I need to get the self-titled Nile demo, which isn't on In the Beginning, and then like 3 albums. And then this one, which is At the Gates of Sethu from 2012. This is great. It's atmospheric, it's heavy. This band has done no wrong quite yet, and this is the newest one. Vile Nilotic Rites. This is the first one without Dallas having anything to do with the band, so that was mildly concerning, but I kind of always knew Carl Sanders was the focal point of this band. I mean, it's basically his band, you know. It's like Alex Webster not being in Cannibal Corpse, or Michael Ackerfeld not being in Opeth. Like, yeah, it's different because there's different guys playing other instruments, but it still sounds like Nile, and that's really what I wanted out of it. I'm just a huge fan. It's just such a replayable band. It's super listenable. I actually have like a good old craving for some technical death metal when I listen to this band, and that says something, because it's not my preferred style of death metal. Though I do like some here and there. I'm not completely opposed to it by any means. Nile rules. All right, we're back to Sweden, y'all. This is a record that took me a good long time to get into. This is Dark Recollections by Carnage. I picked this one up on my honeymoon for cheap. It's like 10, 12 bucks in a record store in Madison, Wisconsin, and I was hyped to have it, man. I've always wanted to like this album a lot more than I have, and you know, this is like the textbook straight up HM2 death metal. It's everything you'd expect when somebody says Swedish death metal. When you think of the Stockholm scene, not the Gothenburg scene. Everything about this. This is Arch Enemy, guys. This is Therion, Entombed, Dismember. They were all part of this band. This was like a training ground. This is like the monstrosity of Sweden. That everybody who was in that band went on to do a million other cool things. It's fun. It's simple. It's I don't want to call it sophomoric because it's not particularly sophomoric in the sense of you could tell it's sophomoric in the sense of you could tell it's younger dudes doing it, but you could tell how much fun it is. You could see how much fun they're having. You could basically, it kind of feels like you're standing in their practice space. It's like a cold, snowy Swedish day. You know, they just came in from their smoke break. They're buying beers, drinking them illegally in there. It kind of feels like that. It's real old school death metal, true blue, real true spirit of death metal, and I do appreciate that about this album more than anything about it because it's great. Carnage rules, super glad to have it. Next, this would have probably gone in that new wave of old school death metal video, but I did not get it in time. This is a blind buy for my last Born Dead collection package. This is Status with Shrines to Absurdity. This is different. This is really, really interesting. I really dug this CD quite a bit. It's kind of techy, mildly dissonant, but definitely jazzy death metal. It's got some weird kind of wonkiness in the riffing style. The melodic choices are very odd. It's tasteful, yet really weird and borderline progressive at points. It creates quite the chaos. It has that Dillinger kind of math rock chaos to it, but it's not quite as chaotic. It's a lot more death metal, tech death based. And I find that really, really interesting. This dude right here, I think his name is Terrell. He is also in the band Buckshot Facelift, if you are familiar with that. It's kind of a goofy, thrashy, grindcore death metal band. Mostly grindcore, but a little deathy, a little thrashy. So that's fun because this is the opposite of that spectrum, where Buckshot Facelift is kind of like mouth breather, you know, just walked out of a cave, been clinging rocks together for 20,000 years. This band is a lot more highbrow, a lot more thought out, methodical, and it's pretty cool. I'm glad to have it in the collection. Don't know how much I'll actually play it, but it's always going to be there, so I may as well, right? Got a handful of them left. We're starting to creep up on the way longer than I wanted it to be mark. Let's go with this old boy right here. This is the new Hell's Headbangers comp from this year. This is comp 10. Obviously Eaten Back to Life spoof artwork. Top loader as well. Really cool. I'm not sure I'm going to put it in my CD rack yet. That's kind of something I'm kind of mildly concerned with. But, you know, it's great. It's got bands like Acid Witch, Morgue, Perdition Temple, Spider, Shed the Skin, Expunge, Death Hammer, Barbarian, Medieval Demon, Manticore, Abomine, Church of Disgust, Fluids, Hunter's Moon, Druid Lord. Pretty much I liked almost all these bands before I went into this to an extent. Some bands more than others, but a couple of them were really good. Some of them were very straight up, duh, this sounds like it came from Hell's Headbangers, which, you know, you expect that. The label has a style, the label has a sound. I kind of expect sleazy Black Death thrash mixed together and stuff like that. That's a Hell's Headbangers sound in my ears. And, like, you know, some pretty decent death metal. That sounds like what they always put out on their label. So when they have something really, really stand out on the roster, I'm hyped that they put it on the comp because it's a great representation of what this label produces, what it's capable of, and I'm a huge fan. Obviously, I order from them several times a year. I'm on J-Dog's videos literally every day. It's how I start the morning. So, House Headbangers, comp, great. Next, In Dark Purity by Monstrosity. the absolute great training ground for every other Florida death metal band. I feel like if you're in Monstrosity, you're just waiting to get picked up by a bigger band, I guess. You're waiting to get picked up by Morbid Angel, or obviously Cannibal Corpse, or Eulogy, or 1,000,005 other of those Florida bands. It's great. Every album is decently solid. The first three in particular are the stuff I've actually heard. But this is out on Conquest Music, reissued pretty well with this cornball CGI album cover. It's heavy. It's straight up death metal, and that's literally all there is to it. This is about as mashed potatoes and pot roast and carrots as a meal can get, if you catch my drift. And I'm not mad about it, because sometimes you like a good old hearty meal. You know, you like to feel full after you ate. And especially when you top it off with a little dessert of Angel of Death, Slayer on the back end, done in death metal style, great. If you guys have followed me for a long time, I did an Angel of Death vocal cover a handful of years ago. So if you guys search up my name and Angel of Death vocal cover, feel free to go watch that, because I leave up all my old videos. I've gotten a lot of hate on that video, which is really funny, because I did it in a extreme metal style, because I'm an extreme metal vocalist. Duh. So I'm not going to change my vocal style to cover it to sound like Tom Araya, because I don't do that style. It's not what I do. But if you guys like that, go check that out. I think it would be pretty funny to see some new comments on that one. This next one is some Death Doom from Japan, Anatomia with Corporal Torment. It's great. It's super huge Death Doom album. I'm not going to open this one because there's boobies plastered all over the other three sides of this CD. Like, they're looking at me right now. I see it. So it's great. I mean, this was a really good record from last year. I never got around to getting, because the import was like $13 on Amazon, and then like whatever in shipping, I think $7 or $8. And I wasn't in the mood to drop $22 on a Death Doom CD. I love Death Doom, but not $22 unless it's like a classic thing. But yeah, it's top tier. I dug the crap out of this record. I would buy it again every day of the week, and I got it from Born Dead Collection again for pretty cheap in her used sales. She's been running quite a bit recently. Yeah, great Death Doom. Cavernous, definitely cavernous on that one. Next, Pinnacle of Bedlam by Suffocation. I'm trying to collect all the Suffocation, you know. I'm trying to Ash Ketchum Suffocation as well as Nile. It's good. It's not nearly as memorable. It's not nearly as much fun as the earlier Suffocation material is, but nonetheless, my inner completionist is forcing me to purchase every one of the albums of maybe my favorite death metal band. One of them, definitely not top. What am I thinking? But it's great. I wore a t-shirt of this album a couple videos ago, and some dude was trying to call me a poser for it in the sections in the comment section. I thought that was hilarious. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. People are so hilarious to me. Yeah, Suffocation, great. Next, here I'm going to continue my poser streak, and this is Verminus by the Black Dahlia Murder. This is some of that deathcore garbage. No, you're an idiot if you think that stuff. This is some top tier melodic death metal. This is the last record with Trevor Sternad, R.I.P. Obviously, friggin' legend, absolutely. Great artwork. They did such a good job on this packaging in my book. You know, Trevor, I know he handled most of the art. This is a textured cover too, by the way. Let's see if you can see some of it. You really can't see it here, but I promise it's all textured. It's really, really cool. Some of like the emphasis on stuff is all like you could feel it. I don't want to scratch it too much, but it's great. You know, it's another Black Dahlia Murder record. This band does the same thing every record, and they don't need to do anything different. It's fun, it's heavy, it's thrashy, it's memorable, which is great. If you could make the same record every 2 to 3 years since the early 2000s and people still care, you're doing something right. That is all I can say about that. And then this last one, I found this in the like $2 section of half-price books. You know how like underneath there's all the cheap stuff? They're like, we need to get this crap out of my building. Please look here. And I found this in there. I figured, why not? It's called the Everscave with Razors of Unrest. And I picked this up. I looked it up. It said Chicago Death Metal. And I was like, haha, that's my stuff, man. I'm going to try to get on some of that. So I paid $2 for this thing out of the clearance used bin at half price books. It's a $2 death metal CD. Every day of the week, this is a $2 death metal CD. It's generic. It's straight up. It is nothing fancy by any means. But it's definitely worth listening to. It's good to own. If you're sick of listening to all your classics, everything you're already familiar with, you know, toss this on. You get your, you know, 2006 era death metal fix, and you're in good shape. That's all there is to it today. We're over a half an hour, so I'm going to shut my ugly mug and call it a day on this one. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. My next collection update is going to be mostly thrash, but technically miscellaneous. And then after that, the next video will be the year-end list. So I got to get prepping for that. So I'll see y'all on the next one. Keep it greasy.